Today, the IMF declared war on Bitcoin, but not so fast, my friend, as Nayib Bukele and El Salvador had something to say about it, and they're out there calling the IMF's bluff. But before I dive into the things that Nayib Bukele said today about the IMF, let's dive into IMF's attempt to cancel the Bitcoin movement in El Salvador. Well, initially, the IMF required that they have not accumulated more Bitcoin or else they would pull their funding from El Salvador. Well, not so fast, my friend, as my man, the myth, the legend, Nayib Bukele said, this all stops in April. This all stops in June. This all stops in December. No, it's not stopping. If it didn't stop when the world ostracized us and most Bitcoiners abandon us, it won't stop now and it won't stop in the future. Boom, baby. Drop that mic and see what Nayib Bukele is telling the world here. He's saying, I don't give a flying F about anything that you guys are thinking here, and I'm not going to swear because it's a kid's show, but we're looking at the pure revolution of Nayib Bukele, El Salvador, against what was once thought to be the most powerful entity in the world, folks, because we've got the IMF who came out and said, hey, you guys at El Salvador, you tiny little country, you guys need to stop buying Bitcoin, stop mining Bitcoin, and sell off all the mining, halt with the Chivo wallet, halt with all of these things, and not push Bitcoin on your countrymen. Now, the interesting aspect of this is El Salvador details the agreement with the IMF for the accumulation of Bitcoin. It's submitted a request to extend the financing agreements, but the IMF has said they request to limit the purchases of Bitcoin. But Nayib Bukele, they halted for a little bit, folks. Not gonna lie to you. They had us in the first half here, but El Salvador is now doubling and tripling down as they're actively buying 11 more Bitcoin in a day. And in fact, after this was just broken today, El Salvador went and purchased more Bitcoin today as the response, basically flipping the double birds at the IMF here, saying, hey, we are going to continue to buy Bitcoin. Although El Salvador had backed off on their attempt to implement Bitcoin as legal tender, they've backed off. They said, Chivo wallet, you don't necessarily need to have it. Businesses, you don't necessarily need to accept Bitcoin, but we're still going to hold it here in the office. And we're seeing that they're still buying Bitcoin. But the interesting aspect of it is Bukele doubling and tripling down in all of this, right? We had the cool guy Bukele on the thumbnail with his backwards hat, so I'm going to have to match him here with these shades on, as we're seeing El Salvador says Bitcoin purchases won't stop due to the IMF deal. A clause in the country's recently completed IMF financing deal suggested a prohibition against El Salvador's accumulation of Bitcoin. El Salvador said it'll keep accumulated. They've given them 3.5 billion like the goat. El Salvador includes Bitcoin-related reforms, one of which, according to the IMF, so it's a he said, she said here, prohibits further accumulation of Bitcoin by the government. And now Bukele is saying proof of work over proof of whining. So I think it's extremely ironic that we're seeing Bukele publicly go at the IMF here with everything that we're seeing and all the details involved here. We're seeing Bukele openly say, hey, we're not going to stop buying Bitcoin. What are you guys thinking here? It's gotten us this far. Why are we going to turn our back on it? Right? Why are we going to stop buying Bitcoin? The IMF news drew a number of headlines, including from Samson Mao. It says, no more Bitcoin buys from El Salvador. The buys will stop within a few months, he later said. But hey, Bukele is saying, not so fast, my friend. It holds 6,000 Bitcoin. And it's the message is not just important, it's just a catalyst and monumental for change. So El Salvador and Bukele are continuing to double and triple down on this approach. Look, Bitcoiners alike could and should take notes from Nayib Bukele about all of this, right? Because we've seen a lot here go on. We've seen a lot of changes here go on Bitcoin maxis. We've seen a lot of things. We've seen President Trump now put together a crypto strategic reserve with a bunch of different crypto projects. I hate saying that word, crypto projects. But what we're seeing differently here is Nayib Bukele double and triple down on Bitcoin and Bitcoin only. The IMF is trying to force El Salvador to liquidate its Bitcoin trust, cut Chivo wallet, and accept stricter transparency terms. Look, they're giving differences in these billion-dollar loan values. But either way, they're trying to say, hey, the IMF is trying to get El Salvador away from Bitcoin. Now, what does this mean, folks? What does this mean for everybody involved? Would we even be? I didn't even know where El Salvador was before all of this was happening, if I'm being completely honest with you, folks. I could have probably guessed maybe it was in Latin America, but hey, we're seeing now so much public attention to El Salvador. Now, why are we seeing that? Why? They made a big drastic move. Okay, it's a small little country. But the problem is they're making too much noise. They're exposing what the IMF is doing. They're taking control away from the IMF, from the money printer, from these people controlling them, right? They're doing all of these different things. And we're seeing that, hey, they are wanting the government to disclose all public sector Bitcoin holdings and conduct independent audits. Now, despite all this, El Salvador will continue to buy Bitcoin, right? Now, it's interesting because they're threatening them with this with their loan. They're saying, hey, if you don't do this, we're going to pull all of your funding. Well, let's be honest here, folks. The IMF did not fund El Salvador before. Did the IMF fund El Salvador during the COVID crisis when the United States printed money into the oblivion and they were on a dollar standard? The answer is no, right? The answer is no. But now they're dangling this $3.5 billion loan in front of El Salvador's face saying, hey, we will take this away. And it's not just buying, it includes mining as well, which is very interesting. If they were worried about, hey, you are giving this, we're giving you this loan and you are buying Bitcoin with it. We don't like that you're buying Bitcoin with it. But no, they're shutting it down from every aspect. They're trying to say, hey, stop it, right? Not just buying Bitcoin, but mining it too. And I think that's an interesting aspect here because, as many of us know, when you have these natural energy resources, why aren't you using them? Why aren't you capturing that flare gas? Why aren't you doing these things, right? But instead, we're seeing El Salvador now being cut, saying, hey, you need to stop buying and mining Bitcoin. It's really interesting here. And people are equating, hey, this El Salvador move, now El Salvador, this tiny little country, Bitcoin's going down because of El Salvador. How ironic this is, right? We're seeing El Salvador, people saying that it's tiny, it's non-existent, it's a small government buying Bitcoin. They have 6,000 coins. I'm sure there's plenty of whales out there, just singular humans that have more Bitcoin than El Salvador who got in early. But granted, hey, El Salvador is making the Bitcoin price crash. A $2 trillion asset is being moved by one small country. Look, I mean, I love what Nayib Bukele is doing. He's doubling and tripling down. He will continue to do that. And I think that it is absolutely the way to go here. But it's not from just El Salvador. The IMF has been coming at Bitcoin and Bitcoiners alike for quite some time here, folks. Look, Bitcoin versus the IMF and other great expectations. A roundup of recent economic events foreshadows a year of flux and reinvention from Europe to the Pacific. Right? There's a digital divide here. See, look at this. El Salvador ranks only 89th on the latest cryptocurrency index as adoption in the world, but it may be frontline of one of the fascinating global financial questions this year. Now, if it's 89th in adoption and we're seeing Bukele and all of them have to back off, why are Lagarde and all these people coming at El Salvador? Why? It doesn't make any sense. It does not make any sense at all. Now, look at these headlines that the IMF has put out. Leaving the Wild West, taming crypto and unleashing blockchain. Literally, a full clip just based on this. A speech made about how they're going to tame crypto because it's the Wild West. Right? But why would they care about a country that is 80th in adoption? A country that has 6,000 Bitcoin on its balance sheet. Why would they care so much and raise such hubbub about it? It doesn't make any sense unless they realize it's going to take away their power. And who is at the forefront of a lot of this? Lizard Lagarde. Christine Lagarde talking about Bitcoin and the future of money. She's been doing this, look at this, folks, since October 13th, 2017. Look, let's go back to my favorite chart of all time, the Bitcoin chart, folks. Let's go. October 2017. We got Bitcoin. October. Oh, maybe we got to 4,000. We got a little bit. 6, maybe 10,000. October 17. We're looking at the average of about 6,000, the low of about 5,500. That's crazy. We've got Lagarde literally barking up Bitcoin's tree since October 13th, at least from this article. I think we're about to see massive disruptions. She was talking about Bitcoin. She knew about Bitcoin during this time, folks. The lizard Lagarde herself knew about Bitcoin when it was at 5,000, 6,000. And she was saying, hey, this could be the future. And then now they're realizing that this takes power away from them. They're realizing that this is something that could potentially take the power away. So what do they need to do? They need to, quote, tame the Wild West. What are they looking to do? They're looking to regulate the hell out of this. Right? Taming crypto, unleashing blockchain. You guys know as well as I do that when somebody is saying blockchain, they have no idea anything about Bitcoin, right? If they're saying something about blockchain, they don't really understand the true power of Bitcoin. But anyway, let's get back to the point here. Bukele and the El Salvadorian government received this here, saying that the authorities have committed to not accumulate Bitcoin and not to issue nor guarantee any type of Bitcoin index or denominated public debt or tokenized instruments implying a liability from the government. So no new public policy or publicly owned entities participating in Bitcoin operations will be created. That's insane. Right? And then what did Bukele do to respond? Boom, baby. He even tweeted out the eyes here. He's like, oh, would you look at that? We bought another 11 Bitcoin. The response is all you need to know here from Nayib Bukele. The guy's an absolute G, right? He's going to keep on stacking these Bitcoin day in and day out, right? And I think the true power of Bitcoin is being able to continually to stack and hold yourself, not need any entity to tell you what to do, right? You don't need any entity to hold on tight to what you're doing or anything along those lines, right? And that's why I love the Bitcoin way. They've got Plan B passports. They've got full on one-on-one help for you to now get your Bitcoin in self custody if you'd like. Really help unlock Bitcoin. They can help you make large purchases. They can help you go through multi-sig. They can help you get a Plan B passport. Tony came on the pod and told a great story about how Bitcoin changed his life and basically saved his life because he had to suffer from hyperinflation. There's a lot of great things out there that the Bitcoin Way can help you with. So if you go to the bitcoinway.com/green candle, you guys can see my ugly mug here. I was told I look like a funeral director in this picture. So guys, don't roast me too much. But if you guys would like some help on to get into self-custody, the Bitcoin Way gets the green candle stamp of approval here, folks. But let's get back to the reality of the situation. Nayib Bukele basically saying F the IMF, as the member here in the chat is saying. PM, F the IMF. I agree with you at this point. I mean, I think that's what Nayib Bukele is saying. I think that's what everybody's saying here. Hello, IMF fans. Let's go, Christine. It's funny because honestly, it's like her and all the other distractors of Bitcoin. If she actually just gave it a little thought or said, hey, maybe I could hedge my bets at this point in time and bought a little bit of Bitcoin, maybe they would have been orange pilled at this time. Maybe they would have been, something where they would have been something where they could have potentially, helped out themselves, helped out their own financial situations, wouldn't need to rob people blind by controlling the money. They could have maybe just bought Bitcoin and just, hey, banked on themselves, absolutely ruining the currency. But hey, oh man, my man Rock in the chat, the $20 super chat saying, how much for a funeral? Hey, look, I hope you never have to pay for that because, hey, I mean, if you're paying for a funeral, I mean, somebody ended up dying, and that's not necessarily a good thing here. But, maybe if you saw this ugly mug walking down the aisle or greeting you, I don't know. I don't know if this would send some confidence in you, Rock, or if this would make you more nervous about what's going on here. But look at that ugly mug the kid's got going on there. Right. Yeah, there we go. I love it. Open casket for fiat. That is exactly what the IMF is trying to do with Bitcoin. They're trying to give an open casket for Bitcoin. But hey, it's funny. They're saying literally this day, Bitcoin's down 0.8% today, basically flat. They're saying Bitcoin's down today because of El Salvador, which is, I think, hilarious because we went over and said, hey, look at this. This headline just cracks me up. Why is Bitcoin going down? IMF urges El Salvador to stop buying Bitcoin and stop mining Bitcoin. I think that headline is absolutely hilarious and it cracks me up. Like, why are we even caring about what El Salvador is doing at this point, right? I mean, nobody really does. Until now, until they started buying Bitcoin. Now, all of a sudden, these guys care dramatically about what the El Salvadorian government is doing, what Nayib Bukele is doing. It does not make any sense. But as my man Rock in the chat is saying, it's an open casket for fiat. They're absolutely admitting defeat here. So I really appreciate the super chat. You're the man. You always coming in. You might be single-handedly a sponsor of the show, so I really appreciate it. Maybe you're helping me get some more of these glasses. Somebody told me earlier that these glasses make me look like Ron Jeremy. Look, don't Google Ron Jeremy around your kids, folks. But as Satwise Jenks is saying, the IMF exposed all of their cards. This is the beginning of the end of them. And an evil convicted felon, Christine, like I like to call her, Lizard Lagarde. Look at that. Look, I know I showed my ugly mug, but I mean, nothing compares to this. I think, look, I don't want to make fun too much of her looks, but there's no chin going on there, right? That thing just slides on up to that microphone. Just one straight line here. I mean, come on, what are we doing, Lagarde? Work that out a little bit. Eat some meat. Maybe we'll see a jawline every now and then. Jawline hasn't been exposed. I mean, maybe I'm exposing the IMF. I just hope Lagarde can expose her jawline every now and then, right? I mean, this is ridiculous here. A convicted felon from when she ran the IMF and she got promoted to lead the EU Central. Yep. I've kind of told you guys, I've done a few other videos not too long ago about your EU's potential plan for a CBDC. Maybe I'll revisit that if Lagarde keeps making headlines, because the IMF is super corrupt. And Benihana, I will start to try to keep it PG, man. My bad, dude. Hey, it is that I look, man, the YouTube comments are telling me I look like Ron Jeremy. That's all I'm saying. All right. Look, I'm not going to read this out loud. I don't want to get it taken off YouTube. You never know, man. But Max Kaiser mimicking Christine Lagarde when he was on RT was classic. Yes, it was. Max Kaiser, one of the Bitcoin OGs. He's an absolute legend. And we all love Max Kaiser. Now, what is Max Kaiser doing? He's living in El Salvador. Why? Because of this man right here. Because of Nayib Bukele. Because of the moves that he's making. Basically saying it, hey, we don't care what you're saying. We don't care about the IMF trying to put the hammer down here. We're trying to make Bitcoin El Salvador's savior. We're trying to bring basically El Salvador back and make it a superpower again. So I think that Nayib Bukele not backing down is a huge win for Bitcoiners, and hopefully we start to see other countries follow suit. I think it's interesting. It's a sign that, hey, when Bukele made this announcement years ago, it's always like, hey, why haven't we seen other countries come about? Why haven't we seen other countries start to put in and implement a Bitcoin standard? Well, the IMF was probably talking shit about them behind closed doors, folks. That's what we're realizing. The IMF was probably saying, hey, don't do this or else. Now look at what they're doing. They're trying to put and dangle this $3,500 or 35, excuse me, $3.5 billion loan in front of their face saying, hey, we're going to take this away from you if you don't do exactly what we say. Right? They're going to try to take this away from you if you don't do exactly what we say. But what is Nayib Bukele doing? He's doing a little Borat. He's saying, when, you will never get this. You will never get this. Look, I'm getting a little wild with you guys here. But as we're going to see Nayib Bukele keep laying the hammer down and keep buying Bitcoin, telling the IMF, you will never get this. You will never get this. Wah, wah, wee, wah. So I think we've got a bright orange future here ahead of us. I think Nayib Bukele absolutely telling the IMF to get out of his face is absolutely electric. And I think that we are going to see potentially some more out of El Salvador and the positives coming from it. I think Nayib Bukele putting his foot down is just the start. Hopefully we start to see other countries follow suit. But if you missed all of this, as my man Johnny Midas is saying, he missed it, explain Bitcoin to him. Go to the beginning, rewatch it from the beginning, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. As my man All-Nighter Hider usually says, smoke the like Cheech and Chong. And Rock, thank you so much for the super chat here. And I will direct anybody's funeral that wants me to in the chat. Maybe you don't want me to. I'm not a professional. And that might be a tongue-in-cheek joke, but hopefully we don't see any of those anytime soon. Just the funeral for fiat as we all move towards this Bitcoin standard. So thank you guys all for joining. Smash the like, smoke it like Cheech and Chong, hit the subscribe button, tell a friend to tell a friend, and I will see you guys all on the next one.